heading.css. It should get that file and display. So you can directly access, you don't need to mention public. You don't need to mention public because the public folder is now defined to use. You can directly access it files, but directly you can access the files if the file is directly present inside that folder. So suppose here you want to access so home.html. It can get that home HTML and display. Remember, if you don't configure the static files, it cannot access the files. You can access the files. So it is from images, some shoe.jpg. It gets the file and display. So server cannot access the static files. So you can configure multiple locations also. You can configure multiple locations. That means one is in public, another is in some other location. Then we can put another one. App.use, we can use express.static, and you can write any another folder name. So another folder name, some resources. So it will get from public, it will get from resources. So without configuring them static, it cannot work. It cannot work. And you cannot configure multiple at a time. You can configure only one specific folder. And you define the root level folder. All the child folders are accessible inside it. And you can directly configure and use them. This is very important. And for example, see here, suppose I am giving the home page name as index.html. And you know that website starts with index page. Website usually starts with index page. And here I am accessing. So here I am accessing. So http:// so 127.0.0.1 : so 3000 and hit enter. It gets that index page automatically. That means I am just requesting the website URL and automatically it gets the index page, because you know that index page is the startup page. And if you have that index page in your public folder and you configure the public folder in app static, so to use through the static, that means now the index.html can be recognized automatically and it can be accessed, because you already know that index.html is the startup page. It can directly configure that and it allows you to access. So you can configure the static folders and define the static folders. So this is one example for that. For example, suppose this is our folder structure. I will define this. So snipping, yeah. This is the folder structure. I will copy the folder structure for your reference here. This is our folder structure. So copy. And example. So this is the folder structure. This is our folder structure. So here we are defining configures as express static files. So configure express static files. So you have to configure the express static files, and for that this is the program we have written. And to access the static files, this is the program we have written. So this is the program we have written. So in app.js, so that is the program we have configured. So first we need express, then we need express to use static, and we need express to define the folder that it has to start with. You can configure multiple. You can configure. That means now how we can request. So that means from URL, the request will be like this, HTTP. So from the URL, the request will be like this, http:// so 127.0.0.1 and 3000. This is going to request. It will request index.html, and we are configuring like this. So http:// 127.0.0.1 : 3000, and space and slash. Here we are configuring some CSS slash and headings.css. You can access like this. So you can use some images configured in that static location. We can define the images configured in the static location. That means here we can specify images, and here so shoe.jpg also. So here, yeah, and here we are configuring the shoe.jpg. So shoe.jpg file, .jpg file, right? JPG. Okay, that's how we are configuring this using the static files and configuring the static files. And this is very much important, very much important. So while working with server, so this is very important. And if you have index.html, and automatically application starts with that. Application starts with that. And we can handle navigations, which we will see how we can handle the navigations and work with the navigation. So this is one option required. Another important option you need, another important option is in the Express. In the Express, you need a body parser. Body parser. You need a body parser from the Express. So what is the means we are discussing all required for handling interaction with database. So Express body parser important. Actually, the body parser is responsible for, so body parser is responsible for converting the data. It is converting the data. So converting the data into JSON format, and they use the data from format. Actually, so body parser is a middleware. So it is a middleware. It is a middleware library. It is a middleware library. So this middleware library is responsible for parsing the incoming request bodies. So before your handlers is available, before the handlers are available, that means it is responsible for technically translating the data and making the data understandable. So making the data understandable to your server, data understandable to a server. So body parser is very much important, especially when you are working with the data, interacting with the data. So in the middleware configurations, so it is very much important for we generally use for converting the data. So it is responsible for parsing the data. You can say parsing the incoming data, parsing the incoming data. So usually, so it can convert the data into JSON. It can convert the data into JSON object. So it can convert the data into JSON. So generally, body parser is very much required, especially when you are interacting with the data. If you are sending data from your application, generally you will send from a form. So when you send from a form, what happens is the form data is not directly understandable to the server so that it can insert into database or anywhere. Then what you have to do is we need to convert the data into JSON and provide. So this is very much required. So you need to install body parser library for Express. You need to install body parser library for Express. You have to install this library for Express. So how do we install? We have to just use npm install. So, and we can configure body parser. So hyphen save. So body parser. That is how we can install the body parser. After installing the body parser must able to convert the data. It must able to convert the data into JSON. So that means the data that is passed from the specific URL that must be encoded means so parsed, converted, so converted, and it must be displayed, converted and it must be displayed. So that means what we need to do is, after importing this body parser library, so install body parser, import body parser into your application, import into your application. Then allow body parser, allow body parser to encode the URL data. So the URL, encode the data coming from URL, encode the data from URL, from URL, from URL. So and allow body parser to convert data into JSON, data into JSON. So first allow it to read the data, and after that allow to convert the data into JSON. How we can define this? This we will see with the data example, but syntactically how to write it, it is important. Syntactically, how we can write? So syntactically, to write body parser, first we have to import body parser. We have to import body parser. So, and for that importing, first we have to install body parser. npm install, so hyphen save body parser. So we are installing the body parser library. After installing the body parser library, so after installing body parser library, now next step we have to import the body parser. So where body parser is equal to require body parser. After configuring the body parser, now so this body parser have to encode the data coming from URL. That means we have to define. So we have to define app to use the body parser. It should use body parser and URL encoded. So it should define an attribute called extended to true. So this allows the data coming from the URL. Extended true allows the data coming from the specific URL to be accessed, and after accessing, this should be converted into JSON. That means whatever data is accessed by your body parser, it should be converted into JSON. First allow to access, after that convert into JSON. So app.use, we have to write express should use the JSON formatted data. Whatever data comes in the format of JSON, it converts the JSON, and express have to use the data in JSON format. So technically configuring the data and converting the data into JSON format is important. So for this, these two options are very much important. This you will see now while interacting with the database, configuring the client and server communication. You will see how to handle this now. We will detailedly see that practically working. Currently, we are not sending any data from any server, any client-side environment. So that is the reason this is not practically implemented now. In the next example, you will see that working. So first you need to understand how do we write the body parser, configure the body parser. So this is an example for configuring and allowing the body parser to use. So in the middleware configurations, So body parser is very important. Remember, without body parser, you cannot access the data and send the data into database. It is unable to convert the data, collect the data, and send into the database. So body parser is mandatory, especially while working with the data. Working with the data. And another very major important option is while working with Express. So we need to understand another option, that is how do we configuring. So this is Express middleware. In that Express we have CORS. CORS is also very much important. Already what is CORS I told you in several occasions: cross origin resource sharing. Resource sharing. So why we need CORS? What do you say? Why you need CORS? Why you need CORS? Already we discussed CORS related points several times. If you remembered, why you need CORS? In which situation generally we need CORS? CORS is required specially if data is being shared, data is shared. If data is shared across applications, if data is shared across applications running on different servers, right? Yeah, running on different servers. Then your firewalls may block the data coming from another location. Am I right? So we need to allow access control origin. We have to access and we have to allow the origin coming from various resources. We need to allow, right? That means the data coming from other resources may be blocked. So CORS is required to enable the accessibility. That means so in distributed computing, computing architecture. So applications are two applications. So two applications running on two different servers, two different machines. So must share information. So which may be blocked by firewall, which may be blocked by firewall. So you need to configure CORS. So CORS as middleware. So in CORS as middleware in Express, so that it can allow data from remote location, and will not block the data and block the requests coming from other sources. May be blocked. We need to make sure that the requests coming from other sources are not blocked. We need to enable that. So that means you need to configure the origins. So we need to define. You have to define. So access control. You have to define access control and allow. You have to allow origin. You have to allow the origin. You have to allow the methods. So you have to allow the headers. So you need to allow origin, allow methods, and allow headers. So once you allow origin, methods, and headers, so then it is responsible for managing the interactions. So this is also very much required. This is also very much required, especially when you are trying to transport data. So through AJAX calls, through the AJAX calls. So it allows AJAX requests so and access resources from the remote host. Technically, how you define is CORS CORS allows AJAX request to skip same origin policy and access resource from the remote locations. For that, we need to define the CORS and configure the CORS. We have to write the CORS settings. We need to define the CORS settings. So how we can define the CORS settings? So how you can use the CORS settings? That also very important to learn. We have to write that correctly. If the CORS related settings are not correctly configured, then the data sharing will not work, resources sharing will not work, resource sharing also will not work. So you need to learn how to configure the CORS. I will show you because this is very much required. So this is very much required, especially when you are interacting with the data and transporting the data, so and configuring the data. Right. So to configure this, generally we need to install the CORS library, and through the CORS library we can configure all the specifications. But I will show you a simple option here. Currently, you cannot use it until or unless you configure the CORS. So only the basic configuration how to do. So for that, first what you have to do is install CORS for your application. And installing CORS for our application is same how we defined here. So npm, so npm install, npm install, and you have to define CORS, npm install CORS, CORS, and you have to define the CORS. Yeah, sorry, lost connection for a while. Just am I audible? Is it clear to everyone? Right. Am I audible? Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Let's see. Yeah. So how we can manage, so and define the course related settings. You have to first install the course, and our application should use the course. That means after installing the course, you know that we have to import the course. So that means suppose course is equal to require course. So we need to require to use the course, and our application have to use the course. So our application need to use the course. That means app.use. It has to use the course related options, configurations related options. There are several techniques of configuring the course. So enabling the requests and defining them. So actually, so once after installing and it uses the course, you can configure the course related settings. And that I will show you while interacting with the data, what we need to write, why we need to write. So those headers, because once you know about how to write the requests, then you will understand about how we can manage the course related various settings, right? That we will see now. In the next point we are going to discuss about how do we deal with this now, right? But why a course is required, that is important. But how to write the course with the request types, I will show you when we are interacting with the data. So these are the key points you need to know in order to configure the middleware, so that our middleware is ready to accept the request and send the response. Now we want our middleware to handle communication. So with the database, that means Express. So uses Node.js. So uses Node.js Express API. Okay, in Express API uses Node.js to connect with, so MongoDB, connect with MongoDB, and Express API uses Node.js to connect with MongoDB, and send data to client as a response. This is important. This is what we are going to achieve now. So that means Express uses Node.js to connect with MongoDB and send data to client as a response. So we need to create an API that handles the overall communication. This is the final step we need to understand. First, how Node.js connects with MongoDB, we already learned. Now, how API uses this Node.js and gets the data and interacts. That's very simple actually. So let's see. So we will create here. Here a file, a separate file called api.js. We are creating api.js. In this, first, in order to connect with the database, so what do you need? So you need to import all the libraries. So where? So I need here first Mongo client. Mongo client is equal to, so require so MongoDB. So we need to import that MongoDB. So MongoDB, require MongoDB. In that we need to use Mongo client. So in that Mongo client. Okay. Next. So next we need Express also. We need Express. So where Express is equal to require Express. Okay. Now, after importing the library required, one Mongo client is required, another Express is required. Now, next step, what we need to do here is after configuring MongoDB, Mongo client, Express here. Now, another option is we need to configure the URL connection string, So Okay, so again, some problem in the connection, right? So fine. So, yeah, fine. Now let's configure the URL now. URL is, you know, already MongoDB colon double slash 127.0.0.1 and colon 27017. That is the Mongo URL. Okay. Now where app have to use Express. Now we need to create a path. Means you need to create an API on GET request. So that means we have to define like this. We need to configure like this. So how do we define app.get? App.get. So the path is slash get products. Okay. This path, so function, so we have a request and a response. Request and response. Now when you access this from the URL, want to connect with the database, get the data and return the data. So here we will write the Mongo connection. That means Mongo client dot connect with the URL, and it uses a callback function. And you know this callback function have an error, and it will use a client object. And if there is no error, so then, so what we need to do is, so we need to access, we need to create a database object. Database is equal to db dot so client object. Through client object db function, we have to use demo db. Demo db is the database. And through the database object, we have to access the collection. Already all this logic we learned. The collection TBL products dot find, and convert that to array. Array uses a callback function. So in the callback function, so array will have an error and it will return documents. And if there is no error, so if no error, then it should return the documents. It should return the documents and send documents to client. Then we will use response.send those documents to the client. That means the data is sent. Now API request is ready. When you access this get products, this get products is going to connect with the database, get the data from the database and return to the client. Now this API URL is having the data coming from the client. So coming from the server and returning to the client. So I will just use app.listen, listen on port number 3000. Okay, then console.log, we will put message server started. And where server started, we already know. So I will compile and run this now. So we have to write here. So node API.js, it says some module not found. Achha, API is not present here. So once check that. So in shopping API is not present here. Where it is present in this location only. App, okay, I given a wrong API.js is there. Let's run. It has a problem in compiling something. So let's check the errors, what the problem is here. We have MongoDB. Connection is also defined correctly, right? We will report the errors, so right. So Mongo client is MongoDB, because if there is a problem, it should tell us the problem in the connection or anywhere. So let's do here. Acha, we have MongoDB not in this project, right? So MongoDB not installed in this project. So we have to install npm install MongoDB. save. Yeah, MongoDB library is not installed in this, right? We have to install that. We installed in our previous project. This is, we created a separate project now. In the separate project, we need to install this MongoDB library. So this folder is not, this MongoDB is not available. Now it is ready. Let's run this one more time here. So, and you see it says server started, fine. Once server started, now open the URL, and here we have to request 127.0.1.3000 slash, and what is our API request URL? Get products. So get products, it needs to get the list of all products and display in a tabular form. You can see this is JSON data. That means JSON data is coming. That means we know that this URL is sending the data now. You need to give this URL to your client side people. That means generally client side, AngularJS, React.js, JavaScript, jQuery. These people need this URL. They don't need to know which technology is in the background. So means Node.js is used, or these APIs we can create through Node.js, through JSP, PHP, you can create the services which can return the data. Now we need to just give this URL to the user, developer, and he will use this URL. From there he can get the data and he can present the data in a proper form. I need to present this data in a proper form. If I need to present data in a proper form, then I need a client-side technology to consume this data. So by using AJAX calls, we can consume the data and present the data. That we will do. But this is one API request you created. You can configure the requests in the same way. We can handle the request, several types of requests you can define. For example, see now. So I will terminate this. This is one API request which is handling interaction with this. You can create several requests. This is get products. I am creating another one. So app.get, and we are defined here. So slash get product. We have two options, get products and we have get product. Get product is expecting an ID, and we have a callback function. So this callback function is using, request and response. It is using request and response. And here what we need to do is, again we need to connect. Again we need to connect with MongoDB, get the data and find the data and return the data. But this time, so what we are doing is, so here we are configuring in this way. Means we can use find command for searching for this particular parameter. So ID is the parameter value. We have to search for that record and display. So the same logic I will copy here. So MongoDB have to connect with the database. So connect with the database and connect with the table. But this time it should not find all records. It should use a query. And query is, so the field here you are defining as the product ID, and the product ID is nothing but, so the product ID it has to get the product ID. So from the parameter, that means we have to use request.params, request.params.params.id. This will get the product ID. And if the ID is matching with this product ID, it will get that and it will display. That means whatever ID you passed, it will search for that particular product ID and it will return that document. This is how we can pass the ID, and through the ID we can access the record and we can handle the record. Now, how we can create all the other API methods, that means post, put, delete, all these things we will discuss, right? Initially, we are interacting with the database and configuring the data and accessing the data from the database. And we are using different queries for that. So let's compile and run this again. When I compile and run this again, this time, suppose I'm using get product slash 2, then it has to get the second product and display. So here it is showing empty. So it is showing empty. So it's fine. Why? Because the queries that you configure are important. How you define the query, that is important. That means we have to search for the field product ID, and it should get that and display that. And the product ID should match with the ID you have passed. Match with the ID you have passed. Let's compile this and see here. It should get that ID and display. So get product is an API. It is returning an empty record. Let's check why it is returning empty record. So request dot parameters, it has to send the request parameter ID. First we will check the request params ID. Okay. That means what parameter it is returning. First we will verify that on that. And it is using get product sum2. Okay, fine. The parameter is coming fine. 1, okay, that is returning perfectly. Then the find has to get this particular display, the product ID. Based on the product ID, we have to get that. The query we have already designed. There is no error in this. Okay. Documents, we are sending the documents. Returning an empty array, fine. That product related details are available. Related details are available. So find is using the query. So dot ID, this will be fine actually. First, I will separately check whether that record is coming or not. Already in our previous project, we written that. Let me open that full stack. Means we will already MongoDB connection is written. We will check once. Read, this is MySQL. So this is read.js. So that is fine. That command is product ID is matching with that ID. We'll change this. Node read.js. Okay. It is reading that record that is matching with that ID. It is working fine, right? It is available, right? It is available. But here the API is unable to return the data. Parameter also fine. Product ID configured the fine, right? Let me check. Is stopped up, right? Start the server, right? We will report the error, else we have any error. Start it. Get products is working fine. Product ID is not working. Let's check another query here. So some directly I will configure some one. Okay, that is working fine, right? Okay, it is working fine. Only this parameter is not accessed and used here. So that means the parameter that you configured is not accessed and displayed there. Product ID, the parameter value. Specific, it is working fine. Okay, let's check. That means our query is okay. Here, the parameter value is not accessed and used inside this function. It is not accessed and used inside this function. So, but parameter value is defined here. So what we will do is we will create a variable. So let some id is equal to request dot parameters dot id, and let's use this id. So product id, prod id to be defined here in the query we are accessing that prod ID. Prod ID. So, and we are using two. Again, problem is that some from the URL, the parsing is not happening. So we will see that. Let me check this problem, why it is unable to access this URL. Once I will check that. Then in the next session, we will see this example. Now in the next session, what we need to do is, next session, we will see how we can consume this in jQuery and create a UI in the jQuery to interact with this. These two queries we will see how to interact with that, right? Some parsing related course or parsing related problems are there in parsing the query meter, query string. I will once check that. On Monday, we will see this. Monday, we will create an interface to interact with the data and present in the UI. Okay, Monday we will discuss about that.